My name is Samantha Hargreaves. I'm the regional lead for a regional alliance of organisations and activists struggling against destructive extractivism. This is a women-led women's rights alliance. The impacts of climate change are numerous, and many of these impacts have very specific gender impacts because of women's role in their communities and families. The two most obvious impacts are obviously drought and flooding, and these have very particular impacts on women because of their role in food production in the region. The Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that between 60 to 80% of food crops grown and eaten by rural households are produced by women. The other dimension of impact that I think is critical and is gendered is the impact of dislocations. When people have to leave their lands because of drought and flooding and are forced into overcrowded refugee camps or settlements, it has profound impact on women, again because of the division of labour in these communities. Women have to walk far for safe drinking water, for access to firewood and fuel, and obviously with ill health that accompanies both climate change impacts and life in refugee settlements, this falls to women's labour to take care of those that are ill. Global and national, increasingly national inequality and climate change grow out of the same system. And this is a system, it's an economic system, a development model that promotes high levels of consumption, the expansion of economies, the exploitation of natural resources and people's labour for profit. And so the fight against climate justice is a fight against the same economic system that creates and fuels global and national inequality. Within this economic system, it is the majority of the world's poor, many of whom are women, working class and peasant women across the world, that are carrying the burden of inequality and the burden of climate change. And hence, this is a struggle for women through an organised force, the women's movement. What's inspiring our work as WoMin is the resistance that we are seeing by women at community level to destructive extractivism, but also the alternatives that women are crafting and proposing and struggling for in their own communities. A specific example is a woman of Somkhele and Foleni in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, who are really at the forefront of a massive fight against a new coal mine. And given that coal is the largest contributor to carbon emissions globally, this is a just struggle. It's a struggle for people's land, for their livelihoods, but it's also a struggle against climate change. Through these struggles, we also see women proposing the alternatives. And so in communities across the region, women are engaged in food production that follows agroecological lines. Food production that uses organic, low levels of input and low levels of technology is good for ecosystems and it's good for the climate. Here we see carbon being absorbed through these agricultural methods, and once again we see the poorest people in the world making a major contribution to the fight against climate change. And so it is our role as WoMin regionally to support these struggles, to make them visible, and to propose the alternatives that women are defending and developing in their own communities. What gives us hope as WoMin are the community struggles that are being waged across the region. What gives us hope as WoMin is the way in which women are leading and directing many of these struggles against destructive extractivism and climate change. What gives us hope as WoMin is the way many of these struggles are starting to coalesce through regional platforms and movements of women. We have the Rural Women's Assembly, we have WoMin emerging as a regional platform. We have organisations struggling for the defence of women's bodies and for dignity. What gives us hope as WoMin is the possibility and the increasing examples of unified struggle involving affected communities and women in the global north and south. And what gives us great hope is the emergence of campaigns and actions that unify not just single movements, but peasant movements with women's movements, environmental justice movements, and climate justice movements. And it is this great force and river for change that gives us hope, that gives us a vision of an alternative, that gives us the possibility of a renewed world, a world in which we live on very different terms with each other and with nature.